People talk about wedding nights as if they exist outside of time. As if the world pauses, the noise fades, and all that remains is love wrapped in soft lights and quiet smiles. That night, I believed it. My wedding had been long. Endless rituals, countless smiles, hands touching mine in congratulations, whispers of mashallah floating through the air. My feet ached beneath the heavy bridal dress, but my heart felt light. For the first time in my life, I wasn't someone's daughter, someone's responsibility, someone's burden. I was a wife. When the door of the bridal room finally closed behind me, the silence felt unfamiliar. The room was large, decorated with white flowers and dim golden lights. Rose petals covered the bed in careful patterns. The air smelled of perfume, incense, and something else. Something like expectation. I sat on the edge of the bed and took a deep breath. My hands were still trembling, not from fear, but from the strange, nervous excitement that comes when life crosses into something unknown. I thought of Zayan's smile when he had lifted the veil earlier, the way his hands had shaken just slightly when he offered me water. He had looked nervous too, and that comforted me. We were stepping into this together. A soft knock came at the door. Before I could respond, Zayan peeked inside, smiling apologetically. "1 minute," he said. "Someone from the groom's side just arrived late. I'll be right back." I nodded, smiling back. As the door closed again, a childish thought crossed my mind. Let's make this night unforgettable. Zayan always teased me for being too serious, too quiet. He used to say, "You surprise people when they least expect it." And suddenly, I wanted to surprise him, just once in a silly, harmless way. I looked around the room, my eyes landing on the bed. An idea formed. I laughed quietly to myself, lifting the heavy fabric of my dress and carefully lowering myself to the floor. The marble was cold against my palms. I crawled under the bed, adjusting my dress so it wouldn't be visible. Under the bed, everything felt different. The world above me became muffled. I could see the soft glow of the lights through the gap, shadows stretching across the floor. My heart beat faster, not from fear, but from excitement. I imagined Zayan walking in, calling my name, looking around in confusion. And then my sudden laughter as I crawled out, teasing him for life. I pressed my hand over my mouth, trying to stay silent as minutes passed. 1 minute. 2. The sounds of the wedding outside slowly faded. The music became distant. The laughter disappeared. The silence grew heavier. I told myself not to overthink it. But something changed. The air felt still. Then, very slowly, the door handle turned. My heart leapt with joy. This is it, I thought. But when the door opened, the sound it made wasn't gentle. It was firm, deliberate. And the footsteps that followed, they were not hurried, not familiar, not filled with nervous excitement like Zayan's would have been. They were slow, measured, each step landing as if the person knew exactly where they were going. My smile faded under the bed. My breath caught in my chest. And in that moment, before I even saw who it was, I knew one terrifying truth. The man who had entered the room was not my husband. Under the bed, time stopped making sense. Every second stretched like a thread pulled too tight, ready to snap. My body remained frozen, but my thoughts raced uncontrollably. I held my breath, afraid that even the smallest sound would betray me. The footsteps moved deeper into the room. Slow, heavy, certain. They were nothing like Zayan's light, hesitant steps. My husband walked with warmth, with nervous excitement. These steps carried no emotion, only intention. I lowered my eyes to the floor and saw them. Shoes. Old leather, cracked at the edges, coated with a thin layer of dust, as if they had walked a long way to reach me. One lace was loose, dragging slightly across the marble floor with a faint scraping sound. That sound echoed inside my head. I pressed my lips together, forcing myself not to whimper. It's a mistake, I told myself. Someone has entered the wrong room. This will be over in a moment. But the man didn't leave. Instead, he stopped in the center of the room. I watched as his feet slowly turned, one direction, then another. He wasn't lost. He was searching. My chest tightened. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears, loud and violent, like it wanted to expose me. Sweat formed along my temples, sliding down my face and into my hair. The room felt smaller now. The air felt thick, heavy, difficult to breathe. Then the sound came. The door locking. A soft click, but loud enough to shatter any hope I had left. Panic flooded my veins. I wanted to scream. I wanted to crawl out from under the bed and run, but fear chained me to the floor. My fingers dug into the fabric of my dress, clenching it as if it could anchor me to reality. The man didn't move for a long moment. I wondered if he could hear my heart, if he could sense me there. And then he spoke. My name. Not loudly, not gently, just a whisper. Ariba. The sound of my name in his voice sent a chill through my entire body. It wasn't a stranger's voice. It wasn't uncertain or questioning. It was familiar. Intimately familiar. My vision blurred with tears as memories I had locked away began forcing their way back into my mind. No, I thought desperately. It can't be him. The man took a step closer to the bed. The shadow of his body stretched across the floor, reaching toward me like a dark hand. I could see the hem of his trousers now, the slight tremor in his stance, as if he had waited a long time for this moment. You didn't think I'd miss your wedding night, did you? He murmured. My blood ran cold. I knew that voice. I had heard it years ago, soft, charming, convincing. A voice that once promised protection, love, forever. A voice I had learned to fear. The man leaned forward slightly, his shoes stopping just inches from the edge of the bed. And then he said the words that confirmed my worst nightmare. I know you're hiding. You always did like surprises. A tear slipped from my eye, falling silently onto the floor. Because the person standing in my wedding room, the person whispering my name in the dark, was someone I had left behind. Someone who was never supposed to find me again. The moment he spoke, the room dissolved. The decorated walls, the flowers, the soft bridal lights, they all faded into nothing. All that remained was that voice, dragging me backward through time, forcing memories to surface that I had buried so deep I believed they were gone forever. My breathing became shallow. I pressed my forehead against the cold floor beneath the bed, silently begging my body to stay still. If I didn't move, if I didn't breathe too loudly, maybe this moment would pass. Maybe I would wake up. But nightmares don't ask permission. They recognize you the moment you let your guard down. His voice was closer now, not loud, not rushed, but confident. As if he had rehearsed this moment many times in his mind. As if he had waited for this night, knowing exactly when to appear. Ariba, he said again, slower this time. You always liked hiding when you were scared. That sentence shattered me. Because it wasn't something anyone could guess. It was something only he knew. Years ago, before Zion, before marriage, before I learned the difference between affection and control, there was Imran. He had entered my life quietly, through family gatherings, polite conversations, harmless compliments. At first, he was respectful, attentive. He listened to my dreams like they mattered. When he spoke about the future, he said my name like it was already written into his destiny. And when my family refused him, something inside him broke. At first, he pretended to accept it. Then the messages began. Then the calls. Then the waiting. I remembered how his tone changed, how affection slowly turned into expectation, and expectation into entitlement. How he said things like, "If I can't have you, no one should." Under the bed, my fingers trembled as those memories replayed themselves in sharp, painful detail. The man, Imran, took another step closer. I could see the lower part of his legs now, the slight shift of his weight as he bent forward as if listening. The silence between us stretched unbearably. "I saw the invitation," he continued calmly. "Your name looked strange next to his." My heart felt like it was being crushed. He had seen my wedding invitation. He had known. All this time, while I was preparing for a new life, smiling for photos, dreaming of peace, someone from my past had been watching, waiting. "How did you find me?" I wanted to ask, but my lips refused to move. Fear has a way of stealing your voice. "You used to say you wanted a quiet life," he said, almost softly now. "And now look at you, all dressed up, pretending nothing ever happened." A single tear slid down my cheek. Because I had pretended. I had convinced myself that silence meant safety, that distance meant freedom, that time would erase the past. But standing there in the darkness of my wedding room was proof that the past does not forget. Imran lowered himself slowly, kneeling near the bed. Our eyes met through the shadowed gap. For a moment, neither of us spoke. His face looked different, older, sharper, hollowed by obsession. But his eyes were exactly the same. Intense, possessive. He smiled faintly. "I just wanted to see your face when you realized," he said. "I wanted you to know. I never stopped looking for you." My chest tightened so painfully I thought I might collapse. This was supposed to be the beginning of my life. Instead, it felt like the past had reached out and grabbed my ankle, refusing to let me move forward. And as he remained there, kneeling, staring at me with eyes that remembered everything, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't a mistake. This moment had been planned. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The room felt suspended between two worlds, the one above the bed, decorated with flowers and promises, and the one beneath it, where fear and unfinished memories breathed quietly in the dark. Imran stayed kneeling, his presence filling the space like a shadow that refused to shrink. I could hear his breathing now, calm, controlled, as if this moment belonged to him. My chest ached from holding my breath. "Come out," he said finally, his voice low. "There's no need to hide anymore." His words were not a request. They were an order. I shook my head instinctively, even though he could see me clearly. My body pressed tighter against the floor, as if I could melt into it and disappear. "This isn't funny," I whispered, my voice barely a sound. Speaking felt dangerous, but staying silent felt worse. Imran's lips curved into something that was not a smile. "I know," he replied. "That's why I'm here." He rose slowly to his feet. The movement made my heart race. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but there was nowhere to go. The bed felt like both my shelter and my prison. He took a step back, then another, giving himself space that made him more dangerous. "You know," he said, pacing slowly, "I imagined this room many times. I wondered what it would look like when you finally belonged to someone else." His words cut deep. "I wondered if you'd be happy." I closed my eyes. "I wondered if you'd miss me." Tears escaped, despite my efforts to hold them back. "I wondered," he continued, stopping suddenly, "if you ever told him the truth about us." I felt my throat tighten. "There was no us," I said, my voice trembling. "There never was." Silence followed. Then came a laugh. Soft, bitter. "That's what you tell yourself so you can sleep at night," he said. "But you and I both know you didn't walk away untouched." His words dragged guilt and fear to the surface, emotions I had spent years suppressing. Suddenly, footsteps echoed outside the room. Voices. Laughter. Zayan. My heart leapt with desperate hope. Imran heard it too. His body stiffened. For the first time since he entered the room, his calm cracked. He moved toward the balcony door, glancing back at me one last time. "You chose him," he said quietly. "But choices have consequences." The door handle turned outside. Imran stepped onto the balcony, the curtains fluttering as he slipped into the night like a ghost. The door opened. Light flooded the room. Zayan stood there, smiling, until he saw me under the bed, shaking, tears streaking my face. And in that moment, as I collapsed into his arms, I knew one thing with terrifying clarity. This night would never leave us. Because some shadows don't disappear when the lights turn on. They just wait. Zayan didn't ask questions at first. He didn't demand explanations or raise his voice. He simply held me as my body shook, my breath breaking into uneven sobs that I couldn't control. The room around us felt unreal now, like a place frozen in time, untouched by what had just happened beneath the surface. My wedding bangles clinked softly as my hands gripped his sherwani, as if letting go would cause everything to fall apart. "Ariba, breathe," he whispered, his voice calm but tight with worry. "You're safe now." But safety felt like a word that belonged to another life. When my breathing finally slowed, I pulled away slightly and looked at him. His eyes searched my face, not for blame, but for understanding. That was when I broke. I told him everything. Not all at once. Not easily. The words came out unevenly, tangled with tears and pauses. I told him about Imran, about the past I had tried to forget, about the messages, the fear, the silence I thought would protect me. Zayan listened without interrupting. The longer I spoke, the heavier his expression became, not with anger, but with realization. The realization that the woman he had just married carried scars he hadn't seen. When I finished, the room felt unbearably quiet. "I should have told you before," I whispered, shame burning in my chest. "I thought it was over." Zayan took a deep breath. "You didn't lie," he said slowly. "You survived." Those words hit me harder than any accusation could have. Outside, the celebration had ended. Guests were leaving. Laughter faded into the night. Somewhere far away, fireworks cracked softly. But in our room, time refused to move forward. Zayan locked the door, checked the balcony, closed the curtains. Every movement of his felt protective, deliberate, as if he were building a barrier between us and the world. That night, we didn't sleep. Every sound made me flinch. Every shadow looked like a figure waiting to return. I kept replaying Imran's voice in my head, his words echoing like a curse. Choices have consequences. By morning, exhaustion settled into my bones, but fear stayed awake. Days passed, but the night followed me everywhere. Unfamiliar numbers appeared on my phone. Sometimes the line stayed silent. Sometimes it disconnected the moment I answered. I stopped going near windows. I avoided mirrors at night. Zion noticed everything. He never left me alone. And that's when we realized this wasn't over. What had walked into our wedding room wasn't just a man from my past. It was a shadow that refused to let go. Fear does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it arrives quietly, through small, unsettling details that slowly invade your everyday life. After that night, fear became a constant companion, sitting beside us even in moments that were supposed to feel normal. Morning sunlight entered our home, but it brought no warmth. I started noticing things I had never paid attention to before. The sound of footsteps behind me that stopped when I turned around. A parked motorcycle across the street that never seemed to move. A reflection in a shop window that disappeared the moment I looked directly at it. Zion tried to keep life moving. "We can't let him control us," he said, though I could hear the tension beneath his calm tone. But control had already slipped from our hands. One evening, my phone vibrated while we were having tea. An unknown number. I didn't answer. A moment later, a message appeared. "I told you I wouldn't disappear." My hands went numb. Zion saw my face change and took the phone from me. His jaw tightened, the muscles in his face hardening in a way I had never seen before. That night, we made a decision. We went to the police. Sitting in that station felt like stepping into another reality. The bright lights, the worn wooden desks, the smell of old files, it all felt too ordinary for the fear I was carrying inside me. I told my story again. Every detail. The officer listened carefully, nodding, writing notes. When I finished, he leaned back and sighed. "He's been reported before," he said quietly. "Not for violence, but for harassment." The word sent a chill through me. He wasn't just obsessed with me. He was dangerous. The police advised us to be careful, to change routines, to report anything unusual immediately. They promised to keep watch. But fear doesn't leave just because someone says we're watching. Days later, I found a note tucked under the windshield of our car. "Congratulations on your marriage." No name. No signature. Just proof that he was close. I broke down in Zion's arms, my body shaking with exhaustion and terror. "I can't live like this," I whispered. "I feel like I'm being hunted." Zion held my face firmly, forcing me to look at him. "You are not alone," he said, "and he will not win." That night, the police called. They had found him. Imran had been seen near our neighborhood, watching the house from a distance. When officers approached, he tried to run. They caught him before he could disappear again. When I heard the news, I didn't feel relief. I felt empty, because some battles don't end with an arrest. They end when you reclaim your peace, and I wasn't there yet. The morning after his arrest, the world looked unchanged. The sun rose as it always had. Birds filled the air with sound. Life moved forward without pausing to acknowledge the fear that had lived inside me for weeks. And yet, nothing felt the same. I stood by the window for the first time since my wedding night. My hands trembled slightly as I pushed the curtain aside. The street below was empty. No parked motorcycle, no unfamiliar shadow waiting patiently. Just ordinary silence. Zayan watched me from behind. He didn't rush me. He didn't speak. He understood that healing doesn't happen in loud moments. It happens in quiet ones, when fear slowly loosens its grip. The police called later that day. Imran had confessed. Not to love, not to regret, but to obsession. The officer's words were calm, almost detached, but they cut deep. He told us how Imran had followed my life from a distance, how he had tracked my wedding preparations, how he believed that if he could confront me on that night, I would finally understand what I had lost. But there was nothing to understand. Obsession is not love. Control is not devotion. Silence is not consent. When the call ended, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Relief. Not the kind that comes suddenly, but the kind that settles slowly, like a heavy weight finally being set down. Days turned into weeks. I began stepping outside again, at first only with Zayan, then alone for short walks. Each step felt like reclaiming something that had been taken from me, my sense of safety, my right to exist without fear. Zayan never pushed. He never asked me to move on. He walked beside me, matching my pace, protecting my silence when words felt too heavy. One night, as we sat together under the same roof where fear had once lived, he said softly, "You survived more than you ever should have had to." I realized then that strength isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. Sometimes strength hides under a bed on a wedding night, trembling, terrified, but alive. Today, when I think back to that night, I no longer feel shame for hiding. I feel gratitude. Because hiding showed me the truth. It revealed the shadow before it could destroy the light. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. The past does not own us. Fear does not define us. And love, real love, does not demand silence. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is survive and keep walking forward.